Welcome to the Money Business Podcast. I'm your host, Neal Regino. Today I'm joined by Pat Montgomery. Got to know each other for a while. He's got some pretty niche marketing that he does and has a nice little practice here. So, first of all, thanks for coming on here, Pat.
Thanks for having me, man.
And let's start off with your background. So, where you're from, what got you into this industry. Let's talk about how you got here. So let's start from the beginning.
So you basically want the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Uh-huh.
So actually grew up in Maryland, ended up in the Philadelphia area because I went to Temple. And, you know, the old saying, once you're here, you don't ever leave. So spent after school working, 15-ish years in the sports and entertainment industry and wanted to do something a little bit different where, I kind of control what I do and my life, so to speak, as opposed to working for somebody else. And, I wanted to have a market where I could help people, which was really important to me. Got into the business through Prudential, spent roughly about 5 years there first as an advisor and then a manager. Moved on to Penn Mutual for a few years. COVID hit and got a phone call from Dave Jackowitz one day, and the whole process started with evolution, and a little over 5 years later, here I am.
He loves to remind me that I was here before him all the time, so I'm one of the few people he didn't bring in over here. But, our viewers, listeners, whatever, used to hearing a lot about Temple. I have a lot of family that lived there. My grandfather was actually a 3-sport athlete at Temple.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, back when you could be at 5'3" or whatever he was, but he was he was football, baseball, and basketball.
Nice.
Way back in the day. So why don't we talk about first what led you to actually want to come make the move over? So what actually even made you think, hey, I should probably have a deeper conversation? And then what do you think is different here versus the other places you've been?
I think there's a couple things. For me, I think the timing was right, as we're getting calls, daily, weekly from, recruiters, headhunters, whoever, saying, hey, I've got a better opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. And the day that I got the call from Dave, it just may have been one of those days where I was open to have that conversation when, normally we're not. So I had that conversation with Dave and kind of had a nice rapport together. And for me, like, when I was making the transition and now being here, it's all about the culture for me. And I think that one thing that we do really well as a firm is have an established culture and, the no like jerk rules, so to speak, of people that work here. Mm-hmm. It's everybody has their own niche market, so to speak, and different areas, but it's very easy if you want to walk down the hall and have a conversation with somebody, just throw an idea off of them.
Yep.
Or pick up the phone and have a conversation. Hey, Neal, what's working for you right now? How did you do this? I know you just recently did this. How did you guys do it? Mm-hmm. Or your team? And I think that collaboration and the culture that we have is really what kind of sets us apart from other places.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely still egos, but it's not like other places. This morning, I was double booked, and one of our advisors had a meeting for a buy-sell with an estate attorney, and I couldn't be in, and our advisor happened to be in the office already, and he asked him if he would come in, and he did him a favor, just like, yeah, I'll come in. He ran the meeting, and looks like it'll be a new client of his. So that doesn't normally happen everywhere, Not as many people are willing to work together or willing to let their ego aside for and just be part of a team while building your own business. So
I think that's a really good statement because, in this business, it's a lot of type A personalities sometimes or AB personalities where, like you said, that ego-driven. And while I won't say we all don't have egos, I think that we do a really good job of, hey, like, I got an idea. Like, let's throw ideas or, sometimes you just get stumped on, like, what to do or what's the best approach. And I think that when we have the ability to have those kind of conversations with people and, they're not necessarily looking for a cut on the back end of it all, like it makes it like a really cool atmosphere.
Yeah. So let's talk about the fun stuff in your career and in your life. So you were an athlete. You have coached for a long time. Now you're mentoring athletes. Let's talk about your niche market. So I'll let you explain it and talk about how it's going. Where it's
So through my background, being at Temple, I started, Temple many years ago, and then I always worked with the football program, and then became a grad assistant for football. So always a part of it, and then later in life, coach. I was a high school coach for almost 20 years. So being around sports is my thing. I love that. And then through our relationship, or my relationship with Temple, we have been able to build a partnership with them, and we've actually developed a whole division within Evolution called Beyond the Field, which is specializing in, you know, working with student athletes, especially in the world of the college athletics right now that we have with all the NIL rules, the revenue share, and really working with the student athletes on either financial fitness programs or just helping to protect themselves from themselves. There's a lot of, in the world of college athletics, we never thought there would be agents that are dealing with, 17, 18-year-old kids. You have kids that are getting out of high school that are signing deals with Under Armour and stuff like that as before they're even going to college. So, and working with these, athletes and building those relationships, which has been really fun. So, my business partner, Greg, and I have kind of really built this. Started off by doing, like a 3-part series with Temple football last year, and basically like one section on just like the ABCs of financial fitness, and then getting into how the tax ramifications are, because it's really funny when you sit down and do a tax presentation to these guys, and they're all 1099 employees. They have no idea. Oh wow, like I have to pay tax on this stuff, and they're like, when you show them all this, like they're kind of like blown away, and they're not really sure how to handle it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot on, there's 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, so to speak, that they're having this throwdown. Like I can't even imagine when I was in school, like with having just on the low side somebody paying me $50,000 just to play football. Like I don't know what I would have. I survived on almost nothing, let alone what these guys are doing. So.
I always say, regardless, LeBron's a little bit older than me, and I don't know how people can. I know why they give him grief, but I'm like, if I was 18 years old and got that contract, there's no way I would have had the longevity that he had, and with as little headlines as he's had. It's just,
Well, he's done a great job of keeping himself out of those kind of things, the negative things.
So I personally, for a guy like him, I have a lot of respect for, but I also see the other side where you have, I won't name names in Philadelphia, but there's some guys that on the Sixers that have had issues, and I'm like, they're a kid that just got so much money. How do they actually handle that? How do they handle the ego issues, the being surrounded by yes people their whole lives? So I think what you're doing is really important.
Well, I think the problem, and what we're seeing a lot with, and it's one of the things that we really touch on with the athletes is, in talking similar to what you're talking about with a former Sixer and stuff like that, and some of these other athletes, and something we really address is you have all these hanger-ons around you, and like you may be out at the restaurant or a club or whatever, and they're just running up your tab, like, oh well, he can pay for it because he's getting paid for what he's doing, and what that drain does to these people. Or it could be, here I need to send money home to my family because they need stuff, and they're supporting all that stuff, and trying to get them to understand, like, it's you're making it, but it's not your responsibility for everything either.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I actually never asked this background, but did you know Greg before you came here?
No, Greg and I, we met here, kind of just paired up. I think our personalities we mesh well together because our strengths are very different.
Yeah.
Greg's the guy that can walk into a restaurant, and by the time you leave, he knows everybody in there. That's not me. Like, I'm more the reserved person and, like, the analytical, so to speak, on some of the stuff.
That's great. It's great that you found somebody here. I thought you came here first, but I was like, did they come together? But
no, he was. I think he was a little over a year after.
Yeah. Okay. So the the market that you have with one school, are you expanding? What's next for that part?
Yeah, obviously we'll never turn away other schools. We've had other conversations with other, Division I schools within this area. Everybody sees the value of it, but breaking into that is hard. Obviously they're very protective of their student athletes, which they should be.
Yep.
And we've had, like I said, have those conversations. I think is the more we do it, and the more we continue to show the value, it's going to continue to grow. Especially in a world of, like, I always use this analogy, like, there's eight coaches altogether roughly on the basketball team. You have the head coach and like 7 assistants. Where football has a head coach and between support staff and other assistant coaches, another 20 people. Well, at the end of the season, somebody's going to go to another school.
Yep.
And if you've built the relationship well enough with the coaches and the staff, the hope is that when this person goes and gets their opportunity to be the man or the woman in charge, that, hey, I remember those guys from beyond the field. I want them to kind of do this because of what they did for our athletes at Temple is what I want them to do here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so important, especially, I have a hard time because athletes always, even when you meet that, they say, hey, my agent's taking care of this or my manager's taking care of this. And I'm like, yeah, but who's taking care of them? Like, they're not necessarily out for your best interest all the time. There are some exceptions to that, but for the most part, they're putting them in with somebody who's managing their money, that they're probably getting some kind of kickback or revenue share. And then, there's a reason why the stats are there of the 30 for 30 broke, that you didn't have somebody that actually had your back. So where you're coming in, actually teaching them before they potentially can get to that higher level, which not all of them will, but it's giving them that financial foundation, I think, is so important to give these life lessons and to be like, hey, look, this may be the most money you make in a long time now, or maybe you're going to make a lot more. But if you do make a couple of the right moves now, then it can set you up for the next 30, 40 years. So I think that that's really valuable and honorable, honestly, the mission that you have there. So, well, first of all, outside of that market, is there anything else that you're specifically deal with typically on a regular basis?
A lot of small business owners, working with them,
Yep.
Similar to what you do, working on buy-sell agreements, succession planning.
Yep.
And then obviously there's just the regular, people that we run across, their referrals and whatnot that you get, could be, hey, I just switched jobs, I'm retiring, I'm not sure what to do. My wife's a teacher, so I've done a lot of work in the teacher market, which is, it's a different world there, but it's interesting and a little harder to get into sometimes, but it's, it's really rewarding and stuff. It's just.
Yeah, I have a family full of educators, so my family's typically educators or blue collar workers. So I broke out of the mold there to start. Now there's a little bit more diversity, but so I understand that side. I know your daughter's pretty young, but number one, does she play any sports yet?
She is. She does gymnastics and she's playing softball. She tried the whole soccer thing, but that wasn't her thing.
And then, do you think she has any kind of passion for the industry yet?
Way too young for that stuff.
Well, you've met my nephew, but he actually, when we were in Disney the one year, he said, I want to take over your company. And I was like, okay, you're 10.
It's nice when you're sitting in a pool enjoying all the good sides of the business.
But he's the first one in the family that said they want to follow this path, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, we'll see even where things get by the time they're
exactly. It's a whole different world. So
yeah. But anything else you want to share with our viewers?
No, I think the big thing, if anybody could take anything away from what we do, like, I think, very passionate about what we do, especially on this beyond the field section. Greg and I are very passionate about what we do and love the interaction that we have with the student athletes. It's fun because now we've been doing this I guess we've been in Temple for almost a year now with doing different things, and different events that we go to, they're starting to gravitate towards us because they know us.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, especially in this industry, especially, like, people have to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had different athletes and stuff say to me, like, well, I didn't do stuff before because I didn't trust anybody.
Yep.
But I trust you because I know that you're here and, you know, it's your passion. And the coaches wouldn't have you around if they didn't trust you too.
Yep.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, all we have is our reputations, and, you know, we want to do what's right for these kids, but educate them so they can protect themselves. To your point, like, you know, some of this stuff can be gone in a second.
Sure. There's, you know, whenever I meet somebody new, I always say there's two things I want to get across. It's number one, that I'm competent, and number two, that you can trust me. And both of those things take time. And when I was building my business, I used to sponsor medical events. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the first few, I only had a couple of clients. And then as you're doing it for a few years, you might have 20, 30 clients in the room. And now they're coming over. They're bringing other people over because you've already built that trust. So it becomes easier and easier. So it's definitely important. And I always say, you know, we all know it's just as fast to ruin your reputation, way faster if you do the wrong thing for somebody. So you do enough good for enough people, then things are going to keep exponentially growing. So I think what you're doing is, the longer you're doing it, then it's going to just become more and more exponential growth. And, you know, I love to watch what's happening here. And, you know, with us having a number of athletes in our office too, I think that they're excited about it and want to keep seeing what you guys are going to do next. So appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure, and
Thank you,
always
brother.
good seeing
Appreciate
you.
It. You too.
And that's it for us. Hope you got something out of it. Until the next one, this was Money Business Podcast. I will see you on the next one.